Have you felt unprepared or frustrated during a doctor's appointment because you didn't have your medical records on hand? The stress of waiting for your reports until your appointment can add to your anxiety. Pocket Health can help you take control with fast, easy online access to your medical imaging records. Receive personalized questions for your doctor, track follow-up recommendations, and use our report reader dictionary to better understand your medical results. Visit PocketHealth.com to access your records. That's PocketHealth.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Muggy regular Monday here in Toronto, Canada. And tonight we got a great show with a superb guest. I've been kind of persistently chasing him down to come on the show. He's an amazing filmmaker by the name of James Fox, and I just want to bring him in. I'll do all of the ritualistic hellos and whatnot at the end of the show. Very anxious to start the show with him, so without further ado, here is Mr. James Fox. Hello, sir. How are you tonight?
Good evening.
We finally have this opportunity to speak, and I just want to say I am more than honored to have this chance to speak to you. It's such a pleasure, and I hope tonight's show will be enjoyable for you.
Well, I appreciate you extending the invitation and all the support. So I thank you.
No, not a problem at all. And you know, with the amount of effort that you've put into your films, it would take, without no hesitation, somebody such as myself and others to support you. And you know, you've really put your heart on your sleeve when you've made these films. And let's just tell the people how it all came together, because in the beginning, you weren't so much into the UFO thing. And certain things happened when you started researching, and you opened avenues and ideas, and then it brought you to your first film. But what exactly was those things that opened your mind to the possibility?
Well, to be honest with you, when in the past, prior to any of these movies I made on UFOs, when the subject would come up, it would provoke this instant knee-jerk response.
Yes.
of ridicule. I would literally laugh. I remember actually I was dating a girl, Rachel Miller, in Santa Barbara. She said, "Oh yeah, my previous boyfriend was really into UFOs," and I remember immediately dismissing him as a nutcase. I didn't listen to one more word that came out of her mouth. He's got to be a nutcase. So that was like where I came from with this whole, where I started. Long story short, I met some military guys, and they shared some information with me, and I talked with a few more people. I had a very close friend who I worked with, an associate I respected tremendously. And he said, yeah, James, it's highly probable that, UFOs are real, and, and here's why, and the history of it, and talked about Roswell, and I thought, wow, yeah. And so I decided to look into it further, and I did, and I remember my family's response. My father's a mainstream journalist, Charles Fox. He's written for everything from Car and Driver to Playboy.
Right. And
he was like, son, you've got to reconsider. This is a dead-end road. What are you doing with your life? And this is not going to go. Please don't, And then he had letters pouring in from my family. They live all over the planet, and they were all, reconsider, don't do this. And that sort of fueled my fire. And I thought, well, the heck with you guys. I'm going to do it with or without your support. And actually, like I said, that even made me more tenacious and determined. And I said, I'm going to make this documentary, and I did. And I sold it within, I think it took me almost 5 years to make, and I sold it within 6 weeks of completion to Discovery Channel. That's right. So I sort of got my last laugh on that one. And I had no intentions, quite honestly, at that point. It was called UFOs, 50 Years of Denial. And I had no intentions of doing another film on UFOs. It was done. But then I was invited to Russia, where I got to meet with some military guys there. And tell me if I'm rambling, by the way.
No, go ahead. It sounded very good.
And I got invited to Russia, where I met with Pavel Popovich, who just died last year. He's a Russian astronaut, cosmonaut, is what they call him, and some active generals at Star City, Russia. And then I got an interview with Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper, another one with Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and I decided, what am I got to make another movie, and that was the birth of Out of the Blue.
Right.
And that took 5 years. And I did little projects in between, but, just trying to get all the... And by the way, to your listeners out there, getting witnesses to come forward from a nobody like myself, especially at the time, not having the credentials of CNN or anyone else behind me was very difficult. And so people think that, the guys out there, the wackos or whatever, are just trying to sell their story and make a buck. It couldn't be further from the truth. Trying to get these guys, persuade these guys to come forward and talk with me on camera, because they're so reluctant. How the subject matter is generally treated in the media is just tongue-in-cheek, and they just, they have no interest and they've got everything to lose and nothing to gain. So to develop enough trust and respect with these military witnesses took time, and a lot of it. So it was difficult. That was one of the more challenging aspects of it. But in any case, I finished Out of the Blue, and I sold that to NBC Universal within 6 weeks of completion. And I didn't have an agent. Just lucked out, right place, right time.
Well, you've actually read my mind, because that was one of the questions that I've been anxious to ask you, because especially, too, in this industry, as you know, if you don't have the big companies pushing you up the ladder, you're not going to really have much success with penetrating, the industry and getting the big names. And you did it so easily, not easily in it the easiest manner of the word, but it flawlessly came together for you.
It was like, and I'll tell you, there's a very interesting story on how I Know What I Saw came about. So, and I was done, and let me tell you, done with UFO documentaries after I finished Out of the Blue. That took 5 years, the better part of. And I've sold it. It got decent distribution and some broadcasts in Europe and other parts of the world and the U.S. and Canada and whatnot. And it was, I think it got like 2.4 million viewership or something like that. It rated fairly well, and everybody was happy, and we paid off our debts, and that was that. Well, in 2006, I decided, somewhat reluctantly, to revisit Out of the Blue, because I ran out of steam in 2003, but there were a couple of interviews that I never got that I really wanted to get. I wanted to get some of the additional eyewitness testimony of the Bentwaters case, was the landing of the UFO at the nuclear, or the joint British-American air base in 1980. And I had a little more clout at that point, and so I had a little more access, and so I did manage to get a hold of Jim Pennison, John Burroughs, General Gordon Williams, the Colonel, Deputy Base Commander Charles Halt, and so I thought, let me just revisit out of the blue, and I'll go back to the drawing board a little bit, and I'll beef it up a little bit. I think the word I used at the time was revamp. And so I did, and I set a list of interviews that I wanted, and at the top of the list was President, Bill Clinton, because he was president at the time of the Phoenix Lights. Right. Next in line was Governor Fife Symington, because he was the one that ridiculed the whole thing in 1997 at the press club, the press conference he had. And then I had sort of went down the list into the Bentwaters and some additional witnesses at Phoenix, blah, blah, blah. Well, I got 9 out of the 10 interviews. And Bill Clinton was the only one I didn't get. Right. Not that to say I've given up on him, by the way. And when the governor granted me the interview, I'll never forget it, my partners were like, well, what's he going to say? And I said, who cares? Let's get our camera and go before he changes his mind, And you know the story. I don't want to remind your viewers, but basically there was a massive UFO sighting over the state of Arizona, a huge boomerang-shaped craft that was roughly a mile across, according to witnesses, witnessed by, and it was during the time that the Hale-Bopp comet was out, so it was witnessed by lots of people because they were all out of the night sky trying to get a glimpse of this comet. So this thing flies across and witnessed by hundreds, thousands of people, and people are demanding an investigation. I think Councilwoman Frances Barwood was pushing for that, listening to her constituents and pushing for that as well. And the governor said that he would launch an investigation publicly on camera. And then, he just ridiculed the whole thing. Remember, he had this unannounced press conference where he said he found the whoever was behind the lights. And then he had his aide dressed up in an alien suit and made a joke of the whole thing. So that kind of pissed me off. I watched the whole thing go down.
Yep.
So I get a hold of the guy, and he, the governor, on camera, decides to not only say that he did launch an investigation behind the scenes and that there was this growing hysteria all across the state, and the phone lines were ringing from countries. I mean, he said from all around the world it was a point of interest. So he decided he had a behind-the-scenes sort of conference with his administration officials, I guess, and he decided to add some levity to the whole thing and made a joke out of it. Had his aide dressed up in an alien suit, comes out, and that was that. So I really wanted to find out what was behind all that and why he did what he did. And so he explains, the growing hysteria and wanted to curb this whole thing. And then I played him a clip of an interview I did. It was an audio cassette interview I did with one of his former constituents and a witness to the event, Stacey Rhodes, who really laid into him. And I did it live, like he didn't know it was coming. Had the cameras rolling. I said, Governor, I've got this question I wanted to ask, but I thought who better to ask the question, one of your former constituents and a witness to the event. And I pressed play, and she just lays into him. And this is 10 years after the fact. What the hell, you making fun of all of us, and, this is the subject, we witnessed it, and our stories have never changed, and this happened, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of I think he realized just how much he upset his constituents by doing that. And right there on the spot, he said that he too had seen the object, and then he launched an investigation, and they just shrugged their shoulders. He talked to the Pentagon, he talked to people at the local air base, Luke Air Force Base, I believe it is, and they just said, we don't know what that thing was. So his investigation went nowhere. Behind the scenes as well, is Senator McCain, which I reveal in the documentary, also was making inquiries, written inquiries with the Department of Defense, National Archives, Air Force, and he was getting the runaround, Senator McCain at the time. Mm-hmm. So there was an investigation going on behind the scenes, and they were getting nowhere with it. So now I have all these amazing interviews to revamp out of the blue, which I did, and somewhat reluctantly. And then, we got quite a bit, actually, of national press coverage from when I broke that story with the governor, We were on Larry King and Anderson Cooper and Today Show and blah, blah, blah. And this agent in L.A., by the way, my other partners at this point were just they were just done. I mean, we were pushing and with limited money, but we were getting all this attention. I wanted to keep the momentum going, and they were just, they're done.
Yep.
I kept pushing forward, and this agent said, this is an amazing documentary, but I think you could do a lot better if you could just go back to the drawing board for another year. So I had to buy my partners out, and I went back to the drawing board, and my intentions were just to revamp Out of the Blue, and that was the birth of I Know What I Saw. So I spent another 2.5 years, and I Know What I Saw was born. So it parallels, in some respects, some of the aspects in a couple of the cases in Out of the Blue, but it's really, and some people prefer Out of the Blue just because of, but in my opinion, I think I Know What I Saw is more of a personal one-man journey to find the truth of UFOs. You know what I mean?
I honestly do, and that's the way it comes off when you watch it from start to finish, and it leaves you wanting more, and that's the thing as well. If for those who haven't seen it or saw it, I should say, get that chance, and you won't be disappointed.
I'm offering copies on my website. I Know What I Saw, themovie.com, autograph copies selling. So if anyone wants a copy, they can get them there. Or if they want to pay a little less, they can get them on Amazon or History Channel. I'm selling them for the same price as History, but I'm charging a little more for shipping and handling because I'm personally handling them. I'm autographing to whoever buys them, blah, 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 and dealing with all. So, and then if you don't have any money at all, you can also YouTube it and watch it for free.
That's right. They have it segmented, that's for sure. I've
been leaving it up there intentionally for those that can't afford to support it. I still want the information out there, and if you can't afford to support it, great.
And that's what it's all about too. At the end of the day, is getting that information out. And you've been on a guest many times on Larry King. What's his take behind the scenes? Is he a believer, or cause I know he gives the platform basis for this discussion, but what's his take on it? Does he really believe, or is he doing it more or less, because it's the popular thing to do right now?
Well, obviously, it's all about ratings.
Yes.
And UFOs rate very well.
Right.
They're apolitical, right?
Yeah.
Transcends religion and politics and all that stuff. And there's an interest, some of the best grossing films of all time, E.T. and Close Encounters, TV shows like X-Files. So this stuff does really well. But I remember the second time I went on Larry King, and I put the whole panel together. They gave me carte blanche to put the entire, it was amazing. They did want a skeptic on board, but not until the latter half of the show. And it's a really good show, and I highly recommend you guys YouTubing it if anyone's out there that's interested. It was November 2007, and I had John Callahan of the FAA feed from Washington, D.C. I had Nick Pope from the Ministry of Defense of England, satellite feed from Denmark. I had, because he happened to be traveling at the time, I had a colonel, I had a governor, I had one of the airmen who sat with the craft on the ground at Bentwaters, England, 1980, with the symbols and everything that he saw, and myself. And it was a really powerful show. And we went to commercial break. I think it was the first commercial break or the second commercial break. It was really compelling. It was the best show, really. Yes. I wish they'd let me do the shows like that every time. But we went to commercial break, and Larry looks over at one of the witnesses. He said, and he had this look on his face, a very serious look on his face. He said, wow, this stuff's really real, isn't it? And the airman nods his head. He said, yeah. The governor said, yeah, I saw this thing too. This thing was over a mile across. And he had this look like, wow.
Yeah.
The realization of why isn't CNN breaking these, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, like, the executive producer of CNN has been really, really helpful. CNN can't take a stance on this. They just can't. They have to maintain a neutral position, as reporters. But they're all very supportive, and they said that they really didn't think much of UFOs other than entertainment prior to having seen Out of the Blue, and they realize there's something to it now. So in some respects, I've helped a little bit. My films have helped, or our films have helped. That it's a slow process, though. It's like trying to turn the Titanic, right?
Well, now that you've made these two successful films, do you find that you have unlimited access to certain things now that you never did before?
I have access, and it's funny. I got to Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
I could have never gotten to Steven Spielberg before. Or, you know what I mean? It's like I don't have very much money, but I have access now, which is fantastic. You know, and you can't buy that.
No, right.
And so, and I've kind of, I pulled back. I was absolutely exhausted when I finished I Know What I Saw. It was an absolute miracle that film got done. I mean, I could almost make a movie about the making of the movie. So many things that went wrong, and funding issues, and people backing out, and oh my gosh, even when it came down to putting it on the History Channel. Yeah. History Channel, like, oh my God, that's a story in itself. I could go on and on about, but basically, we made that movie in our basement, really. I mean, sure, it had a $400,000 budget plus whatever. But we can't compete with History Channel standard broadcast standards. I mean, those guys shoot in super expensive high-def cameras. Even though we did the majority of stuff in high-def, a lot of the interviews I had, people were dead. I mean, stuff like it was taken 12 years ago. You'll see me in there in my 20s and 30s, by the way, in that film. And we got red flagged from the technical department days before going to broadcast, and we literally patched that thing together. You have no idea, and sent files last possible minute, reconfiguring audio. Then it went to air. Man, it was so close down to the last second, literally. And then we had deliverables. We had we had to comply with the contract. Otherwise, we weren't going to pay a penny. And it took another 3 months after it went broadcast. People kept saying, well, God, didn't you get paid yet? You got paid. I mean, it went to broadcast. We didn't get paid a dime until 3.5 months after it aired.
Wow.
Because we were having a difficulty time complying to their rigid specs.
Wow.
And they kept,
incredible.
These tapes were the better part of $1,000 each. We produced 16 of them, and they all failed. And we had to do it all over again.
Wow.
Your black levels should be 0.07 and they're 0.09. And I noticed a slight digitizing effect in this one shot for 2 seconds. And there's one frame and it's got a half a dropout. And you got to fix, it's like, oh my God.
Wow.
It just went on and on. But the third time we finally got it right.
Now, when you rewatch them, do you sit there and recall all the nitpicking while you're watching?
No, I mean, we fixed a lot of it, and quite honestly, most of the stuff I didn't even notice. I mean, the average viewer would never notice. Yeah, there were some frame rate issues, for instance. Some of the stuff we shot was in 24p, some of it was in 30p. So when you blend those two, it could come across as slightly strobed. Most of the average viewer. And I, what? This is exactly what I said to the tech guy at the end of the day. I said, come on, man, this is not an HD documentary on the beauty of the Grand Canyon. For crying out loud, this is the gritty UFO film that was a grassroots effort. That's the whole people in program acquisitions liked about the gritty feel it had. Just get over it, Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to live with some of it, but some of it's got to get fixed. And so that's pretty much how it ended. But yeah, I mean, I look at the film, and I know what, there was a lot of stuff that got left on the editing room table. I mean,
Yep.
And but it's great. I think if no one knows about the UFO phenomenon, I mean, first of all, I say to your listeners out there, and people say, UFOs, whatever, who cares, a little blobby light, or what's the significance? You have to ask yourself this, and this is one of the reasons why I'm having a difficult time ever walking away from the subject matter. You can imagine for a second to suspend judgment and think for a moment, if there is tangible evidence being kept from the rest of the world that we're not alone in the universe, I think that's such a significant discovery, and I think it's our birthright to know this stuff. It's not in the hands it should be in the hands of a small amount of people on the planet in the know about this. I think we all have a right to know about it, and it pisses me off that they're keeping it, and I'm watching them lie to the general public. And let's just say that, okay, well, UFOs can all be explained in down-to-earth, prosaic terms. In other words, these objects are clearly secret military craft. Okay, well, then I say that's equally as significant because these objects can fly with no visible means of propulsion, no wings, no tail, no wake, no sound, no air disturbance, no sonic boom, They can hover and accelerate from a standstill to out of sight in the blink of an eye, and they're obviously not flying around on Jet A fuel. So all these problems we're having with oil and dependence on oil would be gone tomorrow if this was out in the public sector. So that, in my opinion, is equally as significant as the fact we're not alone in the universe.
Absolutely right. And that's the thing too. If it's something that a person is almost ready to accept or on the verge of accepting, by watching your movie, it would give them that push over the edge, because you're not just speaking to, as you said, Joe Nutcase down the road. You have top-ranking military people of all kinds, police officers, and you can definitely trust these people. So. Oh gosh,
it's so funny. I remember putting that National Press Club panel together. That came to me in I don't even want to call it a vision because it sounds too hokey, but it was kind of like that. I remember I had a film strip in my mind where I saw it go down. I saw it. I was having nightmares coming up to that whole thing too. But the media doesn't show up, I can't get any money. I was crazy. But I saw it as a film strip in my mind. Some people call it a vision, whatever you want to call it. But it was it wasn't like an idea. It was I saw it happen, so I knew I had to do it. Woke up the next morning really early. I called the National Press Club, and I booked the room. And I started getting the witnesses on board, and I started getting people, to come on, and I got a partner on. And I'll never forget it. My sister walks in. She hears me on the phone. We live together. And I'm booking the National Press Club event. I'm arranging to have people fly in from countries all around the world, the highest-ranking military government officials I can find. I'm really trying to capitalize on the momentum of Out of the Blue and all the things that are happening in the media. I'm thinking, strike while the iron's hot, But I didn't have a dime to my name, literally, other than a bunch of credit card debt. But I was like, I'm gonna make this somehow happen.
One way or another, yeah.
And I remember there were times when I was like, how am I going to pay all the hotel rooms and the per diems, and oh my God, what am I going to do? And I hired a video crew to document the whole thing. That was like $10,000, for 3 days.
Wow.
And that was just the video angle of it, And then I had an extra camera guy one day, and oh my God, it just goes on and on. The National Press Club event, renting the National Press Club, that's really expensive. Mm-hmm. And then flying everybody in from all the different parts of the world. It was a miracle it all happened, let me tell you. A miracle.
Well, and that's the thing, it all came together. And has it jaded you in any way, with the amount of success? Or do you expect these kinds of struggles, let's call them, for every single movie that you make from this point on?
Well, I think that in some respects things will get easier.
Yes.
I'm not ready to start on my next film just yet. I've been doing a couple short films on conservation. I'm actually flying to New Orleans on Thursday, and I'm going to do some reporting on what's really going on with this oil spill. I just kind of feel like I want to go in there myself and see. I'm bringing a camera. I'm bringing somebody else to help me do some interviews. But I think my next production is like, God, how do I, unless I have footage of a spaceship, undeniable footage that hovered right over a Coliseum with thousands and thousands of witnesses, I don't really know how I could do any better with what I know what I saw.
Well, is there any other paranormal genre that you have interest in?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I just shot a pilot. I was approached, funny, by an agency in Los Angeles called CAA. Mm-hmm. And they really liked I Know What I Saw. And I'll be honest with you, I think I Know What I Saw could have been a lot better. I could have done a lot better with it. I think it's going to gather momentum. I think it's going to be a sleeper somewhat. Everyone who sees it is like, wow, I didn't know about this. This is amazing. The guy touched the UFO. This huge thing flew over Phoenix. This is undeniable. It's amazing. The governor talking about it. The Senator McCain talking about it. Really, really significant. But, God, I just lost my train of thought now.
With your other...
Anyway, ask the question again. I'm sorry.
I was just asking your other interests of other paranormal
right.
genres.
So anyway, these guys approach me, and they say, "Hey, we really liked I Know What I Saw, and how would you consider doing a TV series?" And I said, it was right after I finished the film, and I was so exhausted, and I thought, I don't know if that's something I want to do or not. And over the holidays, my dad and my family members were like, God, James, Jesus, go for it. Are you kidding me? You know, I was like, oh, that's a long shot, but all right, the hell with it, I'll go for it. So it's a TV series on the paranormal called I Know What I Saw. So I shot the pilot last week, and it's fascinating. We did an outer body experience, a guy who flatlined on the table. We went to the Noetic Science Institute, which was founded by Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, right here in Sonoma, California. Amazing stuff, talking about mind and matter, and how mind and matter are one, or you can affect your mind, your consciousness can affect matter and things of that nature. Yeah. Telepathy, telekinesis, fascinating stuff, and UFOs and ghost sight, all that kind of thing. I'm very interested. So we shot the pilot, and we'll see if it gets picked up.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we'll see if it gets picked up. I mean, really good. I got a really good crew of people that are editing it for me, or doing it. Really good production team, Morningstar Productions. So we'll see. We'll see.
Would you ever consider doing a movie on crop circles? Because a friend of yours is going to be a guest of mine in the next little while. Suzanne Taylor.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And she wanted to ask me what you thought of her movie, if you can, real quick.
I enjoyed it very much, and William Gazecki did a film on crop circles as well.
Yes, that's another great one.
I tell you, I went to Salisbury, England, a couple of years ago to investigate UFOs. And let's see, I talked to the Knights Guardsmen at the Stonehenge. I talked to some farmers, and none of the people that I talked to had seen UFOs, but a couple of the people I talked to, for instance, this farmer, he said that, I'm trying to do his accent, but I won't do it much justice. I went to put some petrol in me tractor. Wasn't gone for a mere 20 minutes. When I got back, it was like there was this amazing, like football field size design in my field. It was like absolutely impossible. I mean, the intricacy, and I thought, wow, this guy was like a nuts and bolts kind of character. It wasn't like a, you know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought, okay, there's definitely something to this. And I talked to a few other people on the difference between the hoax, the guys on a pogo stick with a rope and come on. So I definitely am very aware that it's a real phenomenon, and that just as with UFOs, there's you get some bogus cases. Who knows what the percentage is? I know with UFOs it's quite large, and that generally, in an effort, and not to say that this could even be intentional, but the mainstream is quick to dismiss everything because there are some bogus stuff out there.
That's right.
That's very challenging with the UFO phenomenon and any other phenomenon like that. You got Bigfoot sightings and ghosts, and come on. And so, as a filmmaker dealing with this, I think Susan did a good job, and I know that William Gazecki, I felt, did a good job to sift the crazy out and just get to the core of what's going on.
That's right.
That's the tricky bit.
As a filmmaker, do you feel that there is a particular area that has not gotten enough focus and needs to have a movie made about it?
Particular area, what, with UFOs?
No, of the paranormal.
Paranormal?
Yeah, well, you feel it's kind of left out and sort of forgotten.
Yeah, I think that, with anything, just because we can't explain it doesn't mean it didn't happen or doesn't exist. And just providing a credible platform and some intelligent thought or commentary on these subjects, and kind of keep the fringe out of it, because that's what everyone expects to find with UFOs or ghosts or whatever. Keep it scientific, keep it credible, I think. And also the more credible, witnesses, people that can come forward, they'll recognize that effort and come on board, and that will make it elevate the whole anything paranormal up out of the rut that it's in. Right. I mean, look at Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Mitchell was conducting telepathy, ESP, I guess, coming back from the moon. Well, he was laughed at, but the results were apparently very impressive.
Mm-hmm. And that might have been, the basis for the whole remote viewing branch of paranormal studies, because
Absolutely, and this guy, what's his name, Dr. Dean Radin at the Noetic Institute talked about that, It's fascinating, near-death experience, people that have the ability to project almost like an eyeball out, away from the body and see what's out there. It's amazing,
Well, yeah, I always make that reference. For example, you must feel that when you're filming, because you almost see in a stereoscopic manner, and everything is enhanced, and you can kind of control it somehow, some way. I get that sensation when I'm either writing or mostly when I'm working out, because you kind of focus from out within, if that makes any sense at all, and you're outside your body, and it's just everything is so much more clear. And I think that's basically what that phenomena is. You have that ability to almost bend time, as it is.
Yeah. What about you? What do you think needs to be focused in on?
Well, I don't know. I know there's a lot of things in old Europe that seem to have, gotten a little pushed under the rug. Like the whole fairies and dragons and that kind of thing. It seems to almost be, I hate to use this term, but legend and lore now. But for the history of Europe, I mean, people absolutely believed in those areas of study, and I'm wondering if it's a cause and effect. People are so distracted by so many things that they don't see what they were seeing before.
Well, it's really funny. I'll just share this with you quickly. There's a guy, Raha. He was my computer tech wizard. He was the one that kept my nonlinear editing systems up and running to enable me to do these films out of my basement. He worked at a place which is no longer in existence, but it was called Winner's Circle. And he was the kind of guy, kind of really great guy, but he was kind of, geeky, nerdy, really, really computer savvy. He'd carry his cell phone in a pouch attached to his belt, and he had this big keychain and all this, and he always had put a little glove on when he'd work on your computer. I mean, he was a real tech guy, and he swears to God that he saw a little elf in his house. The last guy that would make up this kind of story, but he said it looked him right in the eyes and it dipped down in behind the couch, and he saw it. I mean, he's like, I know what I saw, and he's like, I don't, expect you to believe me, but this is what happened. He told me these things, and there are these very, very level-headed people. There's so much going on in the universe that we don't know about. Maybe there's like interdimensional, maybe UFOs are interdimensional or space, or maybe it's us coming back, or maybe it's all the above.
That's right.
And with my grandma swears up and down she saw a ghost. She described what the ghost looked like, and it turns out it was the woman who used to live in the house she had in England. So there's so many things that happen. I have a really good friend of mine saw Bigfoot. Yeah. She's the mother of a really good friend of mine, and she was with 5 people in broad daylight. This is what I saw,
No,
so,
I know.
There's so many fascinating things that we categorize as paranormal, but, just sort of defy a scientific explanation as we know,
That's right. Well, I've mentioned this story a few times on the show before, but my wife still thinks I'm crazy, but I could swear I saw a living dinosaur, because I used to be a watchman, security guard for an old power plant here in Toronto, and it ran right in front of my vehicle that I used to patrol the perimeter. It stopped in front of where I was going. It looked at me, it did a 180, and went back the way it came. And I swear to this day I saw it, because as you just said, I know what I saw,
Mm-hmm.
But you go into a room and you tell that to a group of people that are not really, aware of or care for anything unknown. They'll look at you and think, okay, this guy needs to be locked up.
Yeah, absolutely. The people at Stonehenge, the night guardsmen, they were really funny. They thought that they had some. This happened on a number of occasions. They thought there were intruders, because Stonehenge is shut down at night. They don't let people just come in and touch the stones as they did in the 60s. And there are burial grounds out there as well. And these, you know what night guardsmen are like. I mean, they're very, you know, they're like, well, sweet guys, but they're like, you know, like that kind of truckers almost kind of mentality, real nuts and bolts kind of guys.
Yeah.
Not the kind of guys who would make up these little fairy stories about what, you know what I mean? They're just very straight, shoot from the hip. And they were like, you know, we thought we had these intrusions, and so we raced after these people, and flipped me torch on it, is what he said, and this apparition just sort of disappeared right in front of me. I was running after it, you know. Yeah. They were chasing ghosts out the burial grounds.
Yeah.
So anyway, fascinating. There's just so much out there that we know nothing about. But let me ask you, I don't know if any of your listeners have seen I Know What I Saw, or when the last time you saw I Know What I Saw, but what would you like to see done? What next level would you like to see done with the UFO subject?
Well, you know, there's a lot of talk, as you said earlier, of, you know, some of these objects or crafts or machines being homegrown. If, you know, for example, the Aurora project, and then there's even more newer ones than that. If you can somehow get a smoking gun, I know that's virtually impossible, you know, but if you could somehow get the specs or proof of a craft that's capable of even 1/10 the abilities of things that people are recording, I think that would really convince some of the people, you know, that these things are not from Earth, because, as you said yourself, just we're not at that level yet for, you know, propulsion systems and that kind of thing.
Well, you know, in the movie, I do a snapshot history.
Yes.
And I dug up some rather interesting things, and I had some help by a lovely UFO researcher, Richard. Not Richard. I'm sorry. I always confuse him with Richard Haynes. And there's Hoagland. I'm sorry. I'll think of it in a second.
Richard Boland?
No. He died last year. He was based out of Washington, and I'll think of his name in a minute. But in any case, he had been through the congressional hearings of '66. He went through the congressional hearings of '68. Yeah. He knew Dr. J. Allen Hynek, Major Donald Kehoe, and he was just so helpful, and he was so happy to see, because this guy witnessed the whole cover-up. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, it started in like '52. Yeah. The policy shift happened in the Air Force basically in '52, and there was an article that he turned me on to that was published by Life magazine. There's Marilyn Monroe on the cover of it. I think it's April of 1952. And in this, basically what happened was the Air Force decided to work with Life magazine and really, really seriously investigate UFOs. Mm-hmm. And their conclusions in 1952 with the Air Force was that no device or propulsion known to mankind could account for these objects. So in other words, we just don't have that technology. And they said this clearly in 1952.
Yes.
So here we are 60 years later.
That's right.
I mean, come on.
Well, I know we've made leaps and jumps and bounds of advancement, but nothing to even imagine. You know, like, for example, I got sent a clip yesterday from Russia. I'm not sure if you saw it, of a radar blip, and this thing was able to achieve 9,800 kilometers an hour and change direction with no effort whatsoever. Now,
oh yeah, they'll do a 90-degree angle turn on a dime.
Exactly, and that's the thing, you know, like, it just logically try to wrap that around your mind. Put a 747 in your mind for a second, all the listeners out there, and try to imagine that a 747 going 10,000 kilometers an hour and being able to practically change direction with a millisecond. It's not possible at all.
I just interviewed a United Airlines pilot. He's actually a decorated World War II veteran. Captain Neil Daniels for United Airlines, flew for them for 35 years. I just interviewed him a few days ago.
Yeah.
And he had this sighting in 1979, and the object, all the typical flight characteristics. I mean, he described it when it left. It was like, I think the sound he made was, whew.
Yeah.
I said, well, how fast did it accelerate? Did it leave? He right off his wingtip. And it affected his compasses, and it affected the autopilot. Like, he had to grab the control and keep this plane from veering off course. But, he just said, look, it just, gone, in the blink of an eye.
Like blip, that's it.
Technology is just, come on. And I tell you, if we do have that technology, it's a crying shame beyond that, that they're not making that available to us.
That's right, because if they do have that as well...
Detriment to the planet, really, and to our,
You're so right. And what else are they withholding as well? That obviously would mean we have time travel capabilities, too. There's something I wanted to tell you. I'm going to tell you now. I forgot. Yes.
So, this guy, Jeff Sagansky, wonderful, wonderful TV executive. He used to be head of TriStar Pictures. Very, very kind. Very, very helpful. Approached me about 2 years ago, and he said, how can I help? And I didn't realize just how influential this guy was until I sort of did some research. But he just reached out to help me. And at the time, I didn't really need any help. I was in the midst of production. I had funding, and and I said, hey, great, I'll keep it in mind. But right now, I think I'm okay. So, fast forward, finished production of the movie somewhat. It still needed a polish, but he said, hey, we can start. I'd like to help you try and sell this film. And he did. He got a deal with A&E.
Right.
And I met with him in New York, and I said, Jeff, why are you being so kind to me? Why are you doing this all for free? I mean, why? Why are you being so nice? And he said, James, when I was a boy, my family was really good friends with Jackie Gleason. And when he was roughly 15 years old, Jackie Gleason pulled him aside, family friend, and he said, remember this, no matter what anybody tells you, don't ever listen to them. Otherwise, UFOs are real. One of them crashed in the New Mexico desert. President Nixon, I believe it was President Nixon, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure he said President Nixon, took me to an air base and showed me the bodies in the spacecraft, and I saw it with my own eyes. They are real. And don't ever listen to what anyone says to you. So he kept that information in his head for all those years. He's in his 60s now, late 50s, early 60s. And so that's why he did it. That's why I'm helping you.
That's amazing, and that's what is going to be needed more and more and more of, is people that have seen and experienced something, and bring it forward and share it. And for those that don't know, Jackie Gleason was an avid UFO believer as well.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, Steven Spielberg watched my movie and really liked it and wrote a letter to Larry King, which I have hanging on my wall now.
Yes.
Basically saying how much he enjoyed the film, how much compelling he thought it, and is an advocate for government disclosure on the subject matter, but he won't go public with it.
Right.
Wouldn't publicly endorse my movie. Can you believe that?
That's tough.
I was like,
very tough.
God, really? How can I just take this quote? You know how much that would help the effort? I mean, one man, what he could really do?
Oh, I know. You know what you should do is call him back with the Close Encounter sound effect over and over again. Maybe it'll change his mind.
Yeah, right?
Well, I have everyone in the chat room asking if you would like to extend for another half an hour, because this has been absolutely fantastic. What do you think?
Do I hear 15 minutes?
15 sounds great. Okay, I'll let them know.
Only reason why, I've got my sister who's cooked a lovely dinner for me.
All right.
And I told her how long I'd be on for. Can we go another 15? Is that okay?
Yeah, no, if it's going to put...
No, that's 15 is fine.
Okay, so 15 minutes I will add right now.
And if there's any questions that anybody has in any of the chat rooms, please feel free to...
Yeah, definitely throw them out there, or even call in. It's 1-347-237-4571. We have a few minutes. We can take a couple calls, and I'll just go extend right now.
You better say that number again. That was kind of quick.
Okay, it's 1-347-237-4571. 4571. And call in if you have a question, and we'll definitely get it in there.
How was your Memorial Day weekend?
Well, I'm up here in Canada. We had our long weekend last week.
Oh, right, of course,
but I still take time to reflect, and I appreciate all efforts of all wars and everybody that's involved in them. And the loss of life of any war is, tragic, no matter which way you look at it. And
absolutely, I remember listening to this soldier describe. He was young. He was like 19 years old.
Yep.
And he was just, God, he was so broken. And he looked in the camera and he said, every time you kill somebody, it's like killing a little piece of yourself.
Yeah, that's right.
A little piece of you dies too.
Yep.
Wow.
I can definitely imagine that. And I remember stories from, my relatives, and even my father would tell me, because he was from Greece originally. He was alive during World War II, and just the stories you hear are just mind-blowing. But to be in it firsthand is something totally unbelievable, and I don't think I would ever be able to do that at this point.
Yeah, no, that would...
Especially, I have 2 young children. I would never want to leave them. Unless they were in direct danger, I would cut myself into a million pieces for them. But, that might sound strange, but basically that's my stance on it right now, and I know there's tensions building up in the Middle East as well.
Oh, God, there was
a tragic situation.
That was a ship, right? It was an aid
that's right.
ship. Well, what happened there? I got a little bit of the details from MSNBC.
Yeah, I don't know the full story. I'm trying to stay away from mainstream media because you only get the one side.
That's why I'm going to Louisiana on Thursday.
Yeah,
about this oil spill.
That's right. You get to see it firsthand, and you'll judge for yourself exactly the extent of it, because they pick a spot on the beach, it seems to me.
And keep in touch with me. You and I will keep in touch about that, because I'd be glad to post, if you're interested, if your listeners are interested to know what's really going on.
For sure.
I'd be glad to update you guys or report or have witnesses come on and talk about, we got the estuaries, and we got the fishing industry, and what's really happening.
All right. Okay, I just extended, and we also have a call that's on the board as well. So we'll take a call now, and we'll bring them in and see how that goes. Hello, area code 757. You're on air on Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio with James Fox. You have a question?
Hi, Jason. Hi, James. This is Kathy.
Hi, Kathy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I wanted to ask James a question. Did he think that he would ever want to get up just ordinary people's stories and gather them up to bring them in front of Congress or anything in that fashion?
Absolutely. In 2003, I handed out copies of Out of the Blue to each and every member of the House, and it took me a full week because I had personalized letter to each and every chief of staff, which is basically the person that filters through. So the technique I was told, the most effective way to do it, is to write a personal letter to each and every member of or chief of staff to get access to the members of Congress. But I would absolutely love to see congressional hearings on the subject, and I haven't given up. Believe me, I haven't. I'm taking a breather, but I've got some things in the works. We've got the 30-year anniversary of Bentwater's case coming up this year. There are new witnesses coming on board, and that case is, as you know or don't know, I think you probably know.
Yes.
That case is truly phenomenal. I mean, you get the landing of a UFO. The guys touched it, photographed it, left imprints in the ground, radiation levels, symbols on the craft were, copied. So it's a lot of evidence. It was witnessed by a lot of people, and people that were responsible for the security of nuclear weapons. These people we trust to you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's recent enough, 30 years ago, that the witnesses are still alive, they're still coherent. There were so many of them, and it's a very, very solid case. So I would like to use that case in particular. Obviously, there are others very, very significant as well, but that case in particular to push for congressional hearings. And here's the issue, though. Here's what the congressmen, people that I talked to on the Hill, excuse me, basically what they said to me was, well, we can't just have congressional hearings on UFOs. I mean, we have to listen to what our constituents want. So it's going to take the people to demand the representatives to hold hearings. Well, how's that going to happen? The only way that's going to happen is to get the information out there on a scale. You know what I mean? And I had, and then the organization is going to take, and the effort's going to take, not far from impossible, very possible. But that's the angle that we have to do it on. And I've also got ideas of a march in Washington. There's lots of things that are brewing, but I'm just taking a little breather right now.
No, understandably so. And I know you've had a lot of success with this, and I'm wondering, what was the reverse side of it? Did you also receive a lot of roadblocks along the way, or even threats of any kind of people telling you, don't cross this line, don't cross that line type deal?
Nope. No, I did get spooked.
Right.
A couple times, and I don't spook generally easily, but I got spooked. I got spooked in Washington, plays the National Press Club. The DIA apparently and the NSA were there, and then I got spooked in Texas. I'd done a Larry King show the night before, and then I flew from New York to Stephenville, Texas, in 2008, right. January, when that sighting happened.
Yes.
And there was a witness in particular that was being harassed. Ricky Sorrells was right. being harassed by the local Air Force, or the Air Force people, basically telling him to stop. First of all, they're flying their helicopters around at his house late at night, lighting him up like daylight with these big search beams right over his property. And then they're getting harassing calls, and like when I was there interviewing him, not on camera because he was too paranoid, but just talking to him, right. Like a FedEx truck. This guy lives so far off the beaten path. His FedEx truck shows up at his house. Oh, sorry, we got the wrong address. I was like, that was weird. But I felt really spooked there, and he was outright threatened. Stop talking about what you saw. Yep. He said, here's exactly what he said. He said, they called him up. The Air Force called him up. I don't think he got a name, but they said, he said, you need to stop flying over my house. And they said, that's our airspace. We'll do what the hell we want. You need to stop talking about what you saw.
Yikes.
Exactly what they said to him. So, and I got spooked. I just felt under observation that night in the hotel. And even my camera guy, my audio guy at the time, they felt it too. But other than that, and there was one funny comment this colonel made, who's in my movie. His name is Colonel Charles Holt, United States Air Force. And I sent him a preview copy of the film right before it came out. And he writes me back, and I said, did you get the film? He said, yes, thanks, great film. He said, watch your back. That was kind of funny.
Well, you're targeted now, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of funny.
And how about your parents now? I know you, in the beginning of the show, you mentioned they weren't in support of it. Have they come full circle?
My mom died, unfortunately, a couple years ago. Okay. But my mom was actually quite supportive.
Right. Bless
her heart the whole time. It was my dad's side. My dad's very influential, but it was my dad's side. My dad is fully in support. I actually took my father in 1999. 99 or 2000, I think it was in 99. Actually, you know what? It might have been 98, to interview Gordon Cooper, Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper. And he was an iconic figure in my dad's generation. So my dad heard his story, and he was like, wow, I think you're onto something, And now he's very, very supportive. He's very excited, very supportive, loves the film. And so, yeah, he's done a 180.
That's amazing. And I know you asked me earlier what I think would need more coverage. How about the chemtrail, HAARP, weather modification, whole fiasco? Would that be something you would look into in the
Absolutely.
same kind of way?
Angels don't play this harp.
Yes.
Who wrote that book? I don't remember the guy's name, but yeah.
It's on the tip of my tongue, too. It's such a good thing that...
And there's also, there's an amazing book called, it was written by Tim Cook.
Yes.
And it's The Hunt, I think it's called The Hunt for Zero Point. Reads like a thriller. But it's all about basically the Americans plundering technology from the Germans.
Yes.
I don't know what's behind, how much is behind it, but that's very. I think also, here's another thing that I got contacted right after the film aired by a guy named Robert Bigelow.
Right.
And his secretary actually emailed me. She said, Mr. Bigelow wanted to congratulate on a film well done. That was that. Mr. Bigelow, I've heard that name. So I Google him, and wow, the guy's, is like buying technology from NASA to put civilians as a billionaire philanthropist, established think tank on paranormal activity. I mean, the guy is like hugely influential. And he talked with me about the technique for disclosure and how it could be done.
Right.
He said no matter what, and he really shed some light on it. How would you do it? Seriously think, hypothetically speaking, if UFOs were real and if we were being visited or under some sort of observation by an extraterrestrial race or several, how would you disclose that type of information to the world without causing panic, without crumbling of organized religion? I mean, the impacts would be quite substantial. And how do you do that? And I hadn't really thought of it as well as he said, look, think about it. You put all the scandals you've ever, the Monica Lewinsky, the Iran-Contras, like everything you've ever heard, all those scandals, and then you multiply those by about 1 million, and how it's going to disrupt the economy and like religion, and he's just started rattling it all off. And he's paid millions of dollars to explore these possibilities. He's talked to presidents, and this is what he said,
Yeah.
So I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to do sort of a documentary on hypothetically how you'd go about doing this? So you could get people like Bill Clinton possibly on board to talk, knowing it's hypothetical, it's not real. Like, if UFOs were real, as president, how would you disclose this information to the general public?
Yeah.
How could it be done without, do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it was very interesting.
Very,
very interesting to think about how you do that.
Yep. And what was the response? I'm sure if you put that out there, people would eat that up for sure. Especially when you get presidents coming forward and giving their viewpoint. Yeah. So, and I interviewed very briefly. Jimmy Carter. I was the first person to get him on camera, admitting having seen a UFO. That was a major coup. That was rather tricky how we did that, but at a book signing in San Francisco. But also President Ford tried. I know Clinton tried. I know Carter tried to get access to this stuff, and they just, as soon as he became president, it was like just tight-lipped, man. I don't know. Somebody's telling them some. Oh yeah, for sure. There's some sinister behind-the-scenes government within a government that's really shutting this whole thing down, and it's just like it's almost scary to think. People say to me, "Oh, well, the president of the United States, he's got all the power." He says, it's like, come on, really? You think about it? It's like you're gonna take and debrief for the last 60 years of UFO activity or whatever it is we know, and debrief this elected representative who might only be in office for 4 years, and tell him everything? Heck no, you're not going to do that. You're right, and then he's going to try and get access into these files, and these compartmentalized, highly secretive organizations that most people don't even know exist are going to just suddenly open up their files and share this information with the president? Heck no. Not to say there weren't some presidents in the loop in the past, but I think times have changed. I think what Eisenhower said to us in 1961, I think it was. Yeah. He was a 5-star general and president. That's right. The military-industrial complex and the ability for it to escape oversight and develop all this power, I think exactly what he warned the public of happening happened. You're absolutely right on that, and I know I've spoken to Stephen Bassett numerous times, and I'm not saying this stuff from something I read. I mean, from people I've talked to. Yes. You know what I mean? It's different too, from your standpoint, because you're getting it straight from, the. I'm getting it from the source. I mean, pretty close to it, Exactly. And it's kind of scary. Scenario. Well, let me ask you, what do you think the ufology stance is right now? Do you think it's stagnant? I know with YouTube and other various forums, the individual amateur ufologist is making headway, but globally, though, what's your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that it doesn't go away. It won't go away.
Right.
There are ebbs and flows, or what do you call valleys and peaks of interest, but it never goes away. The objects, are clearly seen in our skies worldwide continually. Mm-hmm. And right now we're in a bit of a dip of it, not so much of interest, but it's like you need an event that happens that piques the interest, and these waves of interest come about every year or two or three.
Right.
And I think in some respects the UFOs themselves, whoever's piloting them, is behind some of the secrecy as well, because, and I don't say they're in conjunction with the government, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that they could very well just land or hover over a coliseum during a baseball game, or they could land on the White House lawn. Not to say they didn't buzz the Capitol building back in 1952. I know they did that, but they could just land, in front of large witnesses, and it would be over, right? Or the Macy's parade in New York. You know what I mean? They don't do that.
Right.
It's interesting they don't do that. I mean, they have definitely made their presence known, no question about it, but not as overtly as what it would take for disclosure, in my opinion.
Jason?
Obviously.
Jason?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
I have a question for James.
Yes,
if it's
go
okay.
ahead.
Oh, please do.
James, I would like to know, with so many of us, going through the experience and believing it and knowing it's true, why do we need the government at all for proof?
Well, that's a good point. That's a very good point. I know they have a lot of evidence that the scientific community would love to get their hands on, that there's a repository somewhere, which would come in very handy. But, yeah, I'm operating without the government. I'm putting the information out there as best I can, and the people that know. But wouldn't it be nice to have official validation and recognition?
But if we can't
don't need that.
Why bother?
That's true. You definitely have a good point there. But people like yourselves and myself are doing what we can to get the information out to the general public, with or without the government's help. So yeah, I totally agree with you. And we are proceeding. But I think ultimately, quite honestly, I would like, and as I'm sure many others, an official declaration of or acknowledgement of these things. Because they've got more, they've got the monitoring devices. They've been confiscating tapes, video, film. I mean, my God, I can't tell you the amount of military witnesses I've talked to, responsible for nuclear weapons and Minuteman missiles and all this stuff, have told me that crystal clear, totally in focus, film footage taken professionally was confiscated by some unknown government agency. These men in suits that show up, and I'm not talking about men in black, but these men in suits show up with no name tags or no, uniforms on, and confiscate this stuff, and off it goes. Even I remember interviewing Mercury astronaut Gordon Cooper I think it was early 50s at Edwards Air Force Base, when that UFO landed in broad daylight, and they got 16mm film footage of it, crystal clear, broad daylight, right there on the dry lake bed, taking off and whizzing off at a high speed. He saw the film footage, he developed it, saw it. It was given to a courier jet and taken straight to Washington, never to be seen or heard from again.
That's the way it goes, too. It's suppression of information equals control, and... I
could go on all day about that stuff, but...
Exactly.
That frustrates me when I hear stuff like that, because then I've been on shows with Larry King and stuff, and I hear these scientists, like people like Seth Shostak at SETI, which I love Stanton Friedman's way of describing SETI as an acronym of silly effort to investigate. They're saying, well, where's this film footage and where's all the evidence? I'm just thinking to myself, I know it's in a repository somewhere,
yeah,
under the Pentagon or something. It frustrates me. It kind of, it's upsetting.
So true. Well, what do you feel, though, for amount of information given? Do you feel that this next generation of witnesses and experiencers are less hesitant to give this information, or do you feel that there will always be a stigma, as we mentioned so many times throughout the show, of being considered, nuts or sort of delusional if you do experience these things?
Well, I think, honestly, every single person I know, no matter how skeptical they are, and I deal with some highly skeptical people, not one person has seen I Know What I Saw. And that was my whole goal. Like some of the people in the UFO community got a little disappointed with me and like, oh, you're not going far enough. You don't talk about aliens. You don't talk about I was like, I'm trying to create a body of evidence that could be presented to mainstream, digestible by mainstream, to at least open the possibility that these things are real. Matter of fact, I think I Know What I Saw could be used as a really good tool for that. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
I agree.
You can get it in libraries, and I'm not just tooting my own horn. That was the whole point of this film, was to at least have the mainstream body or skeptic scientific community look at this and say, you know what, this can no longer be ignored. I'm going to at least open up my mind to the possibility that these things are real, and I think that would make further reporting them more receptive to treating the subject matter in a more credible fashion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because as you know, with hardline skeptics, if you come at them and try to force-feed them the information down their throat, they're going to react. Whereas if you give them bits and pieces, they have time to collect and absorb, and move on to the next step. So absolutely I agree with what you just said.
So I'd like to, I'd love to be able to send, and I'm working on it. I'm only capable of doing so much as, myself. But I'd love to send out copies of the film. You and I should possibly even maybe perhaps talk about that if it's some sort of effort that you guys would be interested in helping out with. But I'd like to stamp out copies and send them to every single news organization in the world, or at least in America.
Yeah, I would definitely like to take part in that because, as we just said, it's a great introductory into ufology for those that may have thought about it or are on the fence, especially, and it would definitely create imagination in a lot
it would
of
be it's a big effort, but it's the right thing to do. All the big news organizations, magazines, newspapers, all the editors there, and you have to take into consideration that unless you have a way in the back door, which in some cases you do, and in most cases you don't, that a certain percentage is going to end up in the garbage can. But you have to create just a really very short and attractive way of introducing this film to them.
That's right.
And that would help too, because it would help. It would set a standard of reporting on these subjects, and not them to be so quick to dismiss it.
That's right. And if you can gain that even 1% new audience, it's immediate success.
Exactly. And it's happening. It really is happening. I talk to people at CNN, and they're much more receptive to it than they ever were before. Really, they really are.
Here's a sort of comical question that a friend of mine asked me for the voiceover. Was that your choosing, or was that set up behind the scenes?
Me? You mean using my voice?
Yeah, and Peter Coyote as well.
Well, yeah, it's really funny because my intentions were for Peter to do the I Know What I Saw.
Yes.
And because he did out of the blue. And then I used my voice as a scratch track just because that's how you do it, right? And then I'll just replace my voice later. Yes. And then this editor turns to me and he says, James, your voice isn't half bad. I said, really? And I thought I could save a little money. And I was like, well, yeah. I mean, I'm a little more proactive in this movie. So maybe we'll use a little of me and a little of Peter. So that was the plan. And then as time went on, it was like, you know what? No. Use all of you. So I did. And I think it works.
It did. Both versions. A friend of mine, he's a Peter Coyote fan, and that's why he wanted me to ask if you handpicked them.
I did handpick them, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, I did handpick them. And he did it because his friend, I believe Webster Hubbell.
Right. He
knows Webster Hubbell. And Webster Hubbell told him that the Clinton administration wanted to find out, or Bill Clinton, President Clinton in particular, asked him to investigate the reality of UFOs. Actually, who killed JFK and are UFOs real?
Right.
and they were not happy with the answer they were getting. In other words, they were getting the runaround.
Very, very interesting. It's all a web. Everything intertwines at some point.
I quoted his book, Friends in High Places and Out of the Blue. Yeah. I actually did an interview. I did a brief phone interview with Webb Hubbell.
So funny.
Right?
It blows your mind how everything happens for a reason, and George Norrie says that a lot.
I was just on Coast to Coast. Did you know that?
Yeah, I heard the show was absolutely great. That's they're definitely the kingpins of the industry, and with Art Bell setting it up, and now George Knapp and Ian Punnett, they're all doing a phenomenal job, and I've based my inspiration totally off that show, and not to copy them in any way, but they are the template. You look at that show and you try to emulate it as much as you can without copycatting it completely. So I absolutely appreciate that show without any question.
Well, Ben, listen, if any of your listeners out there have particularly any photographic evidence, but anything in the paranormal that they've experienced that can be analyzed, or any very significant cases, and anything from Bigfoot, ghosts, I'd love to hear about it. If they go to my website, I Know What I Saw, themovie.com, my email address is on there. They can send me an email.
Right. And if they wanted to send it to you through Facebook, is that another option?
Yeah. You know what they can do? They can. Oh, please do. Join my Facebook, I Know What I Saw fan page. It's got great. I've got some great links, some of the video stuff on there. I've got so many photographs of really high-res photographs of the production, stills, great stuff. Right. And they can join. It's free. Just join my fan page club and for updates, and they can also communicate with me that way.
And briefly, what's your plans for the next few months to a year? I know you said you're kind of taking a break, but you've done the pilot. I
did a pilot called I Know What I Saw for a possible TV series last week. It's going to take about a month to edit, maybe 3 weeks.
Right.
And then we're going to pitch it to a number of people. I'm going to New Orleans on Thursday, and I want to cover some of the oil spill, what's really kind of going on, investigate it personally. So I might be doing some video documentation on that. I will be, actually. Whatever level of reporting, time will tell. And then I'm also working on an event with Open Minds magazine to commemorate the 30-year anniversary of Bentwaters. And so I'm having more witnesses come forward, and I'm trying to organize an event in Washington, D.C., where we can get the witnesses to interact with some members of Congress and put pressure on their representatives to come up with some answers. Because what I didn't realize until recently, I was just talking to Jim Peniston, who's one of the witnesses to that case. Every 30 years, when things are classified, secret, or above top secret, or whatever classification they give it, after 30 years, it's reconsidered or reviewed for either another 30 years of secrecy or to open it up and make public. So we're trying to get those files opened up.
And that's going to be a task at hand, and maybe a subplot for the next film as well.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking about a film dealing with disclosure and how it would be done.
Right.
But I'm working on smaller projects, and I have other interests too. Conservation issues, interest, and I think it's time that we.
Well, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you too. If you were approached to do a mainstream movie for the big screen, do you feel that you can cross over to that now, or do you feel that it would almost taint your work and your effort?
Somebody just did approach me the other day. Now that you mention it, of doing a movie. I don't know if I could do a movie though. I don't really have any. I don't know how to do a real movie. I don't know. I'm a neophyte, so I don't know. And I don't know if if it's based on reality and it was done accurately, then perhaps I would be interested in doing something like that. But I don't know if I really could bring anything to the table, really.
No, I totally understand. And I could almost sense that from you, and that's why I felt I should ask that, because this whole conversation that we had tonight has been absolutely honest and open and amazing. And I know you've stayed extended time, and I really appreciate that. And I don't want to take up any more of your time. I know you have your dinner with your sister, but definitely let's do another show. There's so much more to talk about.
Well, keep in touch with me on Facebook, and I encourage other people to join our Facebook fan page and tell their friends to join, because when the time comes to have as many people on board of our effort or behind us and what we're doing, the more power we'll have and the more chances for success. Because I'm far from, believe me, it's far from over. I'm just taking a little break, that's all. But I'm still working a little bit on behind the scenes, believe me.
Well, if you can give your website one more time before we get off the air here, I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's I Know What I Saw, all one word, I Know What I Saw, themovie.com. And right. Also, you can look us up on Facebook, I Know What I Saw, on Facebook, and join. It's free. Join our fan page and dates and all that stuff. It'd be great.
And I just, again, want to say thank you. I know I hounded you sort of.
No, I really appreciate your tenacity. That's what it takes, I'm afraid. I'm really sorry about the scheduling issues. I'm really sorry about that.
Life happens, and it happened for a reason, because tonight was an amazing show with you, sir.
And, hey, I really appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to future shows with you.
For sure, 100%. And you have yourself a great night, and we'll talk very, very soon.
Look forward to it.
Take care. Bye-bye. What a fantastic show with a great filmmaker, and absolutely amazing. I couldn't have asked for a better guest tonight, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please join me for my next show, which will be not too far away from now. Another repeat episode with Jason Martell, Planet X researcher. We had some issues, conflict of time with that show as well, and it's another redo, but it's going to be great. At the start of the show, I mentioned I wanted to do the hellos at the end, and I'd like to do that now. Big thank you to everyone here on Blog Talk Radio that listened tonight or will listen in the future. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Everyone on the Facebook group page, a big support of thank you to you. And to the people that are still not 100% clear with the radio show, you do not have to come to Toronto or anywhere for that matter. You listen to the show off of your computer, either the live show or the archive, one or the other. And basically, it's as easy as that. So just click the play button and you have it right there. Or you can check it out on my website as well at paranormalguysinc.tk. That's paranormalguysinc.tk. That's TK, Tom, and Karen. And I also want to say hello to everyone on YouTube. If you're not a subscriber yet, please subscribe. Lots of information shared and gathered, so hope you can check that out. And all the people on Twitter and MySpace, thanks for the support as well. It's been a real amazing night, that's for sure. And again, my next show, I apologize. I said it was Jason Martell. It's actually Dr. Rita Louise. Big mistake on my part, on June 3rd at 10 p.m. And she's a naturopath and medical intuitive. That, again, as well, is a reloaded show, and that's why I got the two confused. But hope you can join me then, and have yourself a great night. Take care, and we'll talk very, very soon.